What's up, DAW Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the DAW. And in this week's episode, we have Timothy Linetsky, also known as Underbelly, also known as You Suck at Producing. That wasn't a very good impression. Let's do it again. You suck at producing. Did I do it good? Was that good? That probably sucked. Also, he makes really good music, super good music. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about AI inside of music production. What is the future of music creation and music production? We're also going to talk about the tension between being a creative and being a marketer and creating multiple types of art in your brand. By the way, if you're brand new to Behind the DAW, my name is Wyatt Troy, and this is a podcast where we interview music producers, singers, songwriters, music industry experts, and everyone else like that on an emotional, philosophical, branding, marketing, and music business basis. Basically, we cover everything that has to do with your music career except the technical stuff. All of that is in our In the DAW series. Go check that out. And inside of every episode, we have a free download. So make sure to go down into the description and get that free download. And if you really enjoy this podcast, then you are going to love AU5's School of Bass. This is AU5's flagship masterclass talking about his sound design system that he has used for the last 15 years. You can learn his system of creating an unlimited amount of sounds, rhythms, textures, basses, blasters, leads. What else is there? All the things that makes AU5. You can learn how to do that. All you got to do is click the link down in the description or head on over to dawnation.net/schoolbase. But DAW Nation, with all that out of the way, with all that said, let's go behind the DAW with Underbelly. I want to welcome you to another episode of Behind the DAW. Today, we have Underbelly, also known as Tim Linetsky. Did I say it right? I bet I did.
You got it.
Oh, that's amazing. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. And let's dive into the deep end. No need to waste time. Tim, what is one of the worst decisions that you have made for your music career?
Well, it's not actually been anything catastrophic. I've been extremely lucky. One kind of bad decision was I was touring in college, my first international tour with a guy named Azim Ward. He was an international flute sensation. He went viral in the UK off Facebook for his senior flute recital. And we did a great tour. It was amazing. But then I came back and I was, still feeling high, still feeling like I'm a international superstar DJ. And I decided to take a quarter off from school. And I was even considering dropping out of school and moving to LA and just doing the producer grind thing. And I managed to move into a house with some other music people, producers, and there would be members of like Odd Future and Gold Link and other kind of, somewhat clouded rappers and such. But they were all just doing the vibe in the house was just doing hella drugs, just making terrible music and just clout chasing, just like the most depressing LA you could imagine. That was definitely a reality check for me. I was like, man, I should probably not drop out of school right now. That would be a bad idea. I maybe lasted like a month there before moving back in with my parents and being like, okay, I gotta go back to school, even though I was very begrudging about it. And then like a week later, everybody in that house got evicted. It was kind of good timing. That could have been a lot worse. But maybe not the best decision overall.
Your mainstay is in Portland, is that right?
I'm in Portland now, yeah.
You're in Portland. So you moved to LA, is that right?
Yes, but that was back when I'm originally from California, and I was going to school at UC Santa Barbara, so it wasn't too far.
So you moved in with all these colorful characters and dropped out of school, and it just... not a good time. Not a good decision. You moved back in with mom and dad, which is that is not shameful at all, dude. That's amazing that you have that kind of opportunity to move back in with them and recenter yourself. And so from there you went, I'm assuming you went back to school, kind of got your head screwed on straight, and you've been crushing it ever since. Is that right?
Sure. Thank you.
That was a great answer. And DAW Nation, make sure to stay all the way to the end, because at the end of the episode, we're going to be asking Underbelly what is the best decision that he made in his music career. You bring up a good question, Tim, which is, this is something I'm endlessly fascinated on, because when you and I very first got into the music industry, like what do we call it? The 2010s? Is that what we call it? This was starting to fade away, but it was still a very, prominent thing that was being said, that if you wanted to make it in music, you want to have any kind of career, you had to move to LA. You had to be in California somehow, right? I think you have absolutely blown that I hate to say accusation, what would I say? That theory out of the water. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's all on the internet anyway. But, I wouldn't discount anybody who wants to do that. I mean, you throw a rock in LA anywhere, you hit like 20 producers on the head, like it's just undeniably still the hub for the entertainment industry. And I know many, many talented producers and artists and musicians in LA. And, I think it does help to just be rubbing shoulders with people in the industry. So I don't want to discount that. But on the other hand, everything is on the internet these days. And I've made so many amazing connections just purely online. I don't think anybody should feel any pressure to have to do something like that.
I do find a special connection of people living outside the major hub and doing their own thing. I love driving past like really small towns where I'm like, man, in that farmhouse, there could be a famous producer living there. That is so cool. That is so cool. But regardless, I am endlessly interested in learning about AI and how that is being implemented inside of music. So I just barely listened to your Slamcast. That is their podcast, right? Slamcast? Slam Academy podcast, something like that. I listened to your podcast on there and you started touching that. And I was floored by some of the things that you were saying, because a lot of the interaction that I see online in relation to AI is this absolute disgust. It's, coming from creators. And, there is the artist part of me that's like, I get that. I really, really do. There's, you wander into the realm of, is this true art? Are you stealing it? Is it, have you paid your dues? Have you grinded your face off the way that we did? So on and so forth. And on the more innovative, geeky, side, I'm like, this is so cool. There's so much stuff coming out right now. But I would love to know your take on that. As of today, how is your stance with AI in relation to art, music production, stuff like that?
Well, full disclosure, I'm actually working on my own AI music startup product called Conductor. It's the world's first AI co-pilot for music production. I'm working on that right now. I've shown a demo of it on my Discord. Anybody who wants to check it out and sign up for the beta can do so in my Discord. But yeah, I'm going to be rolling that out, within the next month or two. Yeah, basically it's an assistant for helping you make music in Ableton. You can talk to it in natural language. You can be like, hey, I want a sick trap beat at 140 in the style of Travis Scott, whatever. And it'll generate it for you using MIDI as opposed to audio. So it's a little bit more flexible that way. In general, my stance is for AI and art and music is generally positive. I think I understand that the disgust, I don't really with, the Suno Udio paradigm where you're just typing in a sentence and boom, a full song pops out and you can say you made that song, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with that if you're just trying to make meme music or background music or even just like, a generic sounding song. For me personally, it's just creatively unfulfilling. It's like I need a little bit of struggle to sort of take ownership over the work. And that's what I'm sort of trying to do with Conductor, is to sort of leverage these tools and find a middle ground where, you are still the creative driver. And things like AI are just helping you get there faster.
That, I feel like, is, like I said, one of the healthiest views on AI music, because I agree with you. The idea that you type in a sentence and an algorithm, a device, a server, whatever, does all the heavy lifting for you. Yeah, there is absolutely something to be said that there is a fulfillment in the struggle. There is a fulfillment in the artistic wrestle, right? At the end of the day, we just did a podcast with Nick Sherwink, and the thing that he said was there's a difference between producers and artists, right? Producers understand the math and the science of creating music, where artists are the ones that learn how to extract their soul into an audio form, right? Or into whatever form that they want to. And so like you were saying, like with Suno or Udio, that absolutely, I guess, technically checks the box on the producer side, but it absolutely does not check the box on the artistic side. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm not sure I would necessarily create such a stark dividing line between producers and artists. I guess I identify as both. I've been a producer for my, very long time. And I guess for me, the dividing line is when I think artist, I think like a singer, a rapper, someone who does vocals over the top of a beat, and the producer makes the beat, I guess. But I think there's artistry in all of it. Even mixing and purely engineering, things like that, mastering. I think there's artistry in that as well. But yeah, I think also AI can help with all of that. But yeah, I agree with the general sentiment. I mean, I think there's going to be a distinction, and there probably already is, between music that is functional, right? Music that is just like a playlist for you to study to or fall asleep to, the 24/7 chill hop beats to take a nap to, stuff like that. Like that can be all AI generated, and I don't think most people are going to know the difference or care about the difference. I think there's just a fact that a lot of music, maybe most music, is just there to serve a function, a purpose, whether it to be chill you out or just, help you work out or whatever. And that can be easily done by AI probably now. But then there is also music that you listen to because you want to hear a point of view. You want to hear a perspective from an actual human being. And I think that is still going to matter. But how much it matters, how many people are going to care, what kind of artistry will sort of, still be human-centered, I don't know. Those are all open questions.
If someone is listening to this podcast right now, and, because I could foresee that some people being super turned off by the idea of AI creation, what would you say to them? Because I mean, you started to touch on that, which is, this is just a tool to help you in your artistic journey, and there are definitely some people in our space that like they see this as the end all be all, like the most heretical cardinal sin that you could commit.
The cardinal sin of EDM right here.
We're on the verge of being excommunicated from the EDM church. How would you help cool their senses with that? What would you say to them?
I mean, just take AI out of the equation. I could go on Splice right now. I could find 5 different Splice loops, put them together into Ableton. Boom, I have a song. So there's already these shortcuts, I guess, to making professional sounding music quite easily without any of this newfangled technology, right? And there's always been accusations of cheating, right? I mean, go back to like the 80s and 90s where sampling was a huge thing. So many people called early hip hop cheating because it was just ripping off old vinyl records. At the end of the day, we're all of us are standing on shoulders of giants, right? I didn't make Ableton. I didn't make Serum. I didn't make most of the drum samples that I use. I'm sort of outsourcing a lot of that work to other artists, other engineers, other, designers to sort of help me with my artistic vision. So the idea that any of us are doing it completely alone, I think is a little misguided. And sort of AI, I guess, is just the next iteration of that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just all of our human knowledge and interest and data sort of smushed together through statistical analysis. And why not take advantage of that?
The battlefield may have changed, but the war has always been the same, right? The war of art, which is, not to reference the book. That's not what I'm talking about. It is the war of art, though, right? Which is this struggle, this fight, this wrestle of learn how to create art and to lean into that very creative side of you and to see the tools around you and to synergize all that into something tangible, into some experience that people can have. And the tools, the battlefield, whatever you want to say, is going to change over time. Like you were saying, back in the 80s, they had samples. That was one of the new tools. The battlefield changed, and a lot of people were upset about that. Along came DAWs, which were much more accessible to the public, and plugins, and then presets to those plugins, and then samples from the presets of those plugins. If we take a step back and look at the macro view, it's ridiculous to from what I'm hearing you saying, and I think I absolutely agree with you. It's ridiculous to not see this as just the newest iteration of the same question that has been asked for probably forever, since the beginning of making music, probably, right?
Totally. And, I'm not denying that certain things get lost along the way. Like even now when I'm working with students who are relying a lot on Splice samples, they come to realize that in itself is limiting, right? You can only do so much with a Splice sample. Yeah, there are definitely trade-offs along the way. And I guess the most extreme trade-off would be, yes, just getting a full song out of a prompt. I do think there is a time and place for these tools. And at the end of the day, we're just all trying to express ourselves through moving air in funny ways, and anything that can help us do that, I'm for. I don't want people to have grinded as long as you and I have to make dope, professional sounding music. I want to lower the barrier for that. That's what I've been trying to do with my channel all these years and with my private lessons. And I think AI is the next step for that mission.
I think that is fantastic. I do wonder, because it's so strange. I don't know if you've seen this inside of our community. I've seen when it comes to AI music production, it seems like there is like an A tier hatred towards that. But when we're talking about image-based AI creation, that's like S+ tier. Like that is the thing that if you want to set our community off in the Reddit comments and blow it out of proportion, that's what I see. Have you noticed that as well?
For cover art?
I would say for cover art, what other way would they use images inside of cover art for websites and stuff like that? But stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've used AI cover art for my songs. I've used AI video generation for music videos before. Again, I think there's a time and place for it. I think if it looks dope, I don't care whether it was a human or AI. As long as it's got sort of an artistic vision behind it, I'm for it. But yeah, I totally agree that there is like, when you can tell something is just clearly AI slop, just aesthetically, it's not very pleasing. I mean, there's already, like, even looking back to when I did do a music video using AI, I think it was in like 2022 or 23, like it already kind of looks a little bit dated because the pace of change with this tech is just insane. Like, how tape has a sound, vinyl has a sound, CD has a sound, or VHS has a look, DVDs have a look. There's going to be these kind of almost nostalgic looks for this type of early AI generated slop that maybe people are going to look back on fondly.
That's wild to think about because it is so hated right now. But you're right. It absolutely could be known as the 2020s AI art style, right? With the 16 fingers and the the weird windowsills and stuff. Did you see everything that happened with Andrew Huang and his card set and all that?
I did not.
He made a deck of cards, and it's specific to music creation. It was a really clever idea. Like there's things on the cards that help you create music, randomly. So you shuffle the cards and you lay the cards out, and it's prompts for you to. It's such a good idea. It's such a good idea. The art that was on the card, that's what really caused a stir, because some images looked very AI generated, and that caused a huge fuss to the point where he had to make a response video to it, saying, like, I didn't just AI this, I hired someone, and then the person I hired used some AI, but he didn't just like take it off. And I just sat there thinking, what is the big problem here? Because if the big problem is the application of AI, shut up. Like, it's not that big a deal. This is just like what me and Tim were talking about. It's just him using the thing. But what seemed to be the issue, if I'm understanding the argument correctly, is that there's a lot of concern about stealing when it comes to AI, them being trained on things. I don't know if that necessarily applies to, like, is it Udio or Udio? How do we?
I think it's Udio.
Udio or Suno. So I don't know that. But so if there's someone listening right now and it's like, yeah, guys, but you're completely missing the point. It's not AI creation. It's that it's trained on in unethical ways. What would you say to them?
No, I think that's a great point. I think that's an excellent point. I didn't see the cards thing. It's a great idea. It sounds a lot like Oblique Strategies, which was a deck of cards that Brian Eno and someone else made for the same purpose in the 70s. But yeah, it's a great idea. As far as AI being trained on our data without our permission, yeah, I do think that's. I do think artists should be compensated for their data. I'm sure there's probably ongoing litigation right now because that's what literally every LLM, Claude, ChatGPT, all of them have done. It's just going to have to be something that is dealt with in the courts, I think. And, with Conductor, with the thing I'm working on with my co-founder, Felipe, we are using training data, but it's based on my work. So, and if we do use other artists' work, we want to do a revenue split type situation. And there are other AI music companies like DataMind with Ben Cantil who do, you know, these like revenue splits so that artists are compensated fairly. And speaking of YouTubers like Andrew Huang, another YouTuber named Ben Jordan has a lot of really great videos on this topic about how Udio and Suno are being used to train on all of our work. And I think he did something very clever where he like poisoned his songs to like up the AI training somehow. I haven't watched it.
This is such a hard question, because if you were to ask us back in 2015, well, I don't know, maybe you were way cutting edge compared to me, but if you were to say, 10 years ago, hey, why, there's going to come a time where you can just type a prompt and audio will be created and you can take that, my little 2015 brain would have exploded. Like there's no way I could have even contained that information. And so asking that question in the next 10 years, like to 2035, what is that going to look like? Just based on what I knew in 2015 to now, we can apply that same logic of me, my mind exploding in 10 years. But I said all that up to ask this impossible question. Where do you think we're going to be in 10 years with AI music? I mean, you know a lot more about this subject than I do. So yeah, what's that going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think, forget 10 years. I think in the next 2 years, the difference between AI music and human created music is going to be indistinguishable. Maybe some of it already is with the latest models. So I think that's basically over. Same with video, same with image generation. Basically anything you could do on a computer, I think an AI can do just as well, if not better. So where does that leave us? Well, like I said, I think there's still a place for listeners and people to want to consume music and media from a human, knowing that there's a human behind it, that there's a sort of human point of view behind it. For certain types of artists, for certain songs, that absolutely matters. Like if you told me that the Skrillex track I was listening to right now was AI generated and it sounded exactly like him and just as good, if not better, maybe part of me would cringe a little bit and I would just still want to hear the real thing. But if like a generic lo-fi hip hop beat was playing and it was AI generated and I'm just using it to study or something, I'm not going to care. So I think it's just going to depend on the artist, the person listening, what they kind of want to see. And then I think, things like live performance, things like actual in-person events, not through a computer, are probably going to be more important, more valued. There's either going to be fully synthetic, media being created, or, this sort of thing, what I'm trying to build or be a part of is this sort of interaction, this hybridization between, an AI and a person working together to make dope art.
I think you're absolutely right, which you totally just proved the point to my question, which is, 10 years, screw 10 years, we're gonna do in 2 what we did in 100. We're gonna the exponential rate of how fast this thing is growing and becoming is just enormous. And I see there's still 2 big questions in my mind, and you started to touch on them when it comes to AI and the application of it. There's the business side, right? Because this is the dichotomy and the yin and yang that every artist has dealt with, which is there's the artistic side, which is the creative. I want to create this world. I want to create the song. I want to create the experience. I want to convey my thoughts and my feelings, so on and so forth. And then there's the business side, which is, if you want to make a living on it or you want to market it to other people so other people find it and listen to it and become immersed in your world and so on and so forth. And so on the business side, I see AI being like one of your best friends, because the idea that you have basically a Jarvis, for those that are familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe or just Marvel in general, this AI companion that can help you create, that can help flesh out ideas, that you can throw ideas back and throw back super fast, that has knowledge of how to market your music or knowledge of how to promote it or whatever, right? That on the business side, AI is like the holy freaking grail. It is like one of the best things that we could have ever had. It's second, the closest thing that we ever had to AI was the internet. Like when the internet came on, that as far as a business perspective for music, I was like, holy crap, this is amazing, right? And so, but on the artistic side, yeah, I still see there being a lot of question marks, and a lot of unknown of where do we draw the line in the sand between creation and, I guess, generation? Where do we draw the line in the sand between human and robotic? Do we need to draw that line in the sand?
I think that it's an open-ended in both cases, both the artistic and business side, because I think a lot of what people find threatening about this is that, the margins for being an artist are already so thin. Like, almost no one is making a living off of it, especially if the expectation is you make a living off of royalties off of Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. I saw a statistic that already like 20% of all the music that's being uploaded to Deezer right now is purely AI generated. If people were like, if you were a lo-fi artist, right, and you were making bank off of getting on these like Spotify editorial playlists, right, and sort of, somehow managing to make a living off that, and I know artists like that, all of a sudden, this AI can make a lo-fi hip-hop you just as good as you. Why would Spotify pay you? Why wouldn't they just make all of their own music? Which I think they were already doing. I think there was some sort of controversy where they were either hiring ghost producers, to basically populate these playlists and not have to pay royalties, or just outright just replacing them with AI. And Spotify can do what Spotify does without having actual human artists behind a lot of its playlists. So I think from a business perspective, yeah, that is still an open question as well.
I did not think about that. That is a super legitimate point. You're right, because when it comes to, Spotify, the number one pain in the butt for Spotify is the artist that it works with, right? Because they have to pay them out, they have to deal with all the legal stuff, they have to all that kind of stuff. And so if they could just cut that out and use something like a Suno or an Udio, whatever, to make the music. Wow, dude, yeah, that is terrible. So you're right. What does that look like in the future?
I don't want to sound like a crypto bro, but I feel like maybe blockchain or something like that could help as a way of sort of, helping artists take ownership of their work back. You know what I'm saying? Because right now we're all at AI aside, we're all at the mercy of Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, I guess, like these huge distribution platforms where they get to decide, what kind of royalty split we get. And we basically have no say in that. I don't want to go back to like the cringe era of NFTs, like where everybody's paying $1 million for a JPEG, you know what I'm saying? But like, I do think there could be a role in that technology for, having artists, monetize their work without having to split so much of their royalties with these huge companies. I'm shouting out Ben Jordan again. He made a great video about the end of capitalism and how we're all sort of participating in this like digital sharecropping economy where we don't own anything. We just subscribe to these, subscription platforms. And with music, it's a similar situation. So I hope there's a way around that. I hope we can do something a little bit more decentralized. There's another platform called Audius that is like a SoundCloud, but on the blockchain that, I've been involved with, and they're sick. So maybe hopefully more platforms like that will crop up. But yeah, it's tough. It's a big unknown for sure.
The business side of me has to wonder if the future of being an artist, if the future of being a creator has to be more multifaceted than it is now. So, for example, let's take our wonderful resident Underbelly. You are a creator. You are an artist. You make songs, and you are also a brand. You suck at producing. You have your own sense of humor, your own voice. You're not just this one-dimensional artist. You have a world. You have so much depth. And so I have a theory that is going to be one of the surefire ways that you can prepare for this kind of future, is that you have this whole world that's associated with your art. It's not just music. It's an idea. It's not theology. I guess it could be a theology. Are we starting cults here, Tim?
Sure. Why not?
Why not? We got time. We got an hour. Let's go. And so, but do you see what I'm saying? Like, I think one of the ways to combat this onset of whatever the future technology holds is to create a multifaceted, artistic, I hate to say brand, but like ideology. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I take AI aside, I think that's already been the case for at least the past 10, 20 years. I mean, I think there's a few people who are lucky, like, I don't know, Burial or somebody like that, who doesn't have to show his face, doesn't have to put any dumb Instagram reels up. He just puts up, his album on Spotify and millions of people listen to it. He never has to show his face. He never has to do any, like, share, subscribe, any of that. And that's it. And there's artists that can do that even now. And I've never been able to figure out how they managed to do that. I don't know what it took, if they just got really lucky, if they just had some crazy team behind them. I think that is the exception to the rule. I think for most artists, you have to do more than just make a song. You have to make a music video. You have to make reels. You have to make tutorials. You have to make sample packs, all these other, revenue streams, attention streams, I guess, to getting heard. I mean, like, making the song is like maybe 30% of the battle. Like the rest of it is content, is doing reels. It's doing TikTok. That is really where people get discovered these days. People get fans. So I 100% agree with you. And yes, probably with AI, it's going to be even more important to do something like that. But I think it's already been the case that, we are in the business of brand making when it comes to art and trying to make a living off of it.
That's a really important part of what you just said is to make a living off of it. Because I could foresee a lot of people listening to this being like, I don't want to do any of that. I just want to create. And there is nothing wrong with that, right? If that's what they want to do, that is totally a legitimate path. And if you want to make a living off this, and if you want to have as much impact as possible, right, getting out to as many people as possible, it's just the name of the game, right? This is the same for everybody. This isn't just about musicians and producers like us. If you're a carrot farmer, you got the same problem, right? If you're selling jelly beans to kids, don't do that. That's weird.
You got to make Instagram reels about it.
You got to make Instagram reels about selling candy to kids. Flag, shadow ban, get out of here, And so that was a completely unnecessary spiel just to say I agree. That's where all that was going.
I mean, I think there's it's definitely in my work and in many of my friends' work, there is a tension between basically being a billboard for yourself and just doing the art, just focusing on that, right? Because being a billboard for yourself takes a lot of time and energy, which could also just be spent making music, right? So for those who don't want to do any of that and just want to work on their craft and make the best music possible, mad respect. For me, I want to get heard. That is important to me for whatever ego-driven, I don't know, reason. I want to do that. But at the same time, I don't want to just make like Mr. Beast clickbait content. You know what I'm saying? Even though that is what's the incentive, right? Especially being a YouTuber and all that. One sort of tension I've had in my career is sort of being this funny YouTube tutorial guy, but also wanting to be taken seriously as an artist and sort of push that forward. And that's sort of what I'm trying to do lately with my new song, my music video, doing a little less on the silly YouTube tutorial, but still doing that, of course, because I'm a silly guy. Yeah, just like trying to steer more towards an artist career rather than a content creator career.
Which, by the way, Get Too Close. That's the most recent song that you released, right? Such a good song. My 2-year-old was dancing to it today. That's such it's such a good song, dude. And the music video was so cool. And you showed the behind the scenes with that on the socials, and the tension of creating art and being a walking billboard for yourself. That, oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever had anyone word it so succinctly, right? Succinctly, yeah. That is the $1 million question, is how do you create art? Okay, hold on. Actually, in the event that somebody creates music and they are fine with putting it out, and if it gets 2 views, they are on cloud 9. They are so stoked that them and their great Aunt Mavis listens to it, and they are over the moon about that, right? That is a special kind of person. That is not who I am. It sounds like that's not who you are, or most of the people listening to this. And so in the event they want to share it, then they have to wander into the realm of becoming their own billboard, right? Not only just to get people to listen to it, but for financial reasons, so on and so forth. Maybe it's an ego thing that you're saying. Maybe it's just a connection thing, right? Maybe it's just that, a community thing, whatever. We could talk endlessly about the reasons why, but it feels like you have done that in a really great way, because it looks like the way that you become a walking billboard, you really enjoy. I mean, it looks like you enjoy doing, you suck at producing and all that kind of stuff. Is that a fair statement to say?
I do enjoy it. I mean, it's definitely a grind sometimes. I mean, I listened to a bit of your Behind the DAW episode where you're talking about coming back and talking about how much of a grind it is to make videos and shoot them and reshoot them and write them and edit them. Yeah, it's a grind for sure. Takes a lot of time to edit a video and put it out and make it look nice. So yeah, I mean, there's that, but I try to make it fun for myself by being silly, and I guess that comes through in the content in the videos. I think people enjoy watching where the person who's making it is clearly having fun, I've tried to do more serious stuff with my videos, and I'm just like, this is so boring. It's boring to make. It's boring to watch. A lot of people just take way too seriously. I mean, we're not curing cancer here. We're making silly sounds at best. I do it for my own reasons to just make it fun for myself and be entertaining for me. But I also want to help everyone sort of make it feel a little less pressured, because like making art, making music, especially alone in your room when you're just so close to your DAW, you're just getting this reflection of yourself. It can be, it can be overwhelming and really disheartening sometimes. And so I just want to just make it fun. At the end of the day, we're just trying to have fun here, business aside.
I have derived so much inspiration from you, dude. Like, I remember when I very first started doing DAW Nation, I was like, that really resonates with me. Like, to be able to just be goofy and to promote whatever, a tutorial, a song or whatever. And I also can recognize that there are those listening that doesn't resonate, or that they're like, but wait, my brand is more serious, it's more emotional, I can't really be funny. And whenever someone brings that up, I love to bring up Connor Price. Connor Price? You seen him? So he's a rapper. He knows how to endlessly promote a song in like just such creative ways, doing like what we were saying, like creating the reels and creating the little videos and stuff like that. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is I don't want people to listen to what we just said and get caught in the weeds and say, oh, well, now I have to be this TikToker, what does that make me feel? That sounds so old when I say that. Don't say that.
Boomer over here.
But you know what I mean? Like you have to be this Mr. Beast in order to promote your stuff. And that is not what we're saying, right? That is absolutely not what we're saying. There is a way to generate content to promote your music, to promote your brand, whatever. That resonates with you. Can you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Although this tension between, being silly and being serious, like that's definitely something that I'm trying to thread the needle on, because, get too close and all the stuff that I'm going to be releasing after that, it's definitely like more serious. It's more lyrical. Like I'm singing and like being genuine with emotions and gooey stuff like that. And my YouTube character would never do that. My YouTube character is like deadpan and sarcastic and emotionless and just dead inside. So like, I can sort of see people who only know me from that and watching my latest music video or hearing my song, there being some sort of cognitive dissonance there from how different it is. But maybe that's all in my head. Maybe that doesn't really matter. Or maybe there's a way for me to sort of connect those different parts of my personality, because I can be serious and heartfelt and all that. And I can also be like really dumb and silly. And I want to have a place to express all of that.
That brings up a deeper question that we have all struggled with. I don't think there's a right answer. I think there are multiple right answers depending on your circumstance, depending on the time of life, and depending how you feel on your circumstance and the time of life. Ultimately, it's a question of branding, which is, like you were saying, if you make your YouTube series super funny and then you make music that is super serious and emotional, there will be this distance. And that's a marketing problem, right? Because if you're super funny, that is going to bring in that kind of audience. And then if you are super serious, that is going to also bring in a different audience. And then if audience A sees the content for audience B, it becomes a problem, right? It's the same concept. If you released a polka song tomorrow and then the next day you did a Spanish cholo rap song, it's gonna cause some problems. And so how do we deal with that? Because we are multifaceted people, we are multi-genre people. Genre, is that a word? Have you found a good solution to that? Do you
No. I mean, I speaking of Andrew Huang, I saw another video of his just sort of giving advice for people's music careers and stuff. And he basically said, just do one thing. Just do one thing really well. Only do that. Don't do anything else. Don't jump around. Don't change up the genres. And you will find more success. And he was definitely like, yeah, do as I say, not as I do, because he's done so many different things, right? But I think on the internet especially, it's so easy to just put somebody in a box and only know them for that, or they only do that, or their whole personality is just that. I can see the sort of reasoning behind that advice, because one thing is a whole lot easier to market than a bajillion conflicting things. And I've definitely, not even personality-wise aside, just the number of genres that just my music has jumped around over the years is just crazy as well. And I can totally imagine totally alienating my last boost of listeners from one song with releasing a completely different song like Polka Cholo, whatever. But I think everybody struggles with it. I was listening to a podcast with Porter Robinson talking about that very same problem, where every album he just reinvents his sound. He does something completely different. And his whole song, Russian Roulette, on his latest album is all about that. And with him, it's even more pressure because he's got a whole team behind him that he pays, whose salaries depend on him being successful. I don't have anything like that. Like, if I destroy my career, it's just me. I'm not responsible for anybody else. So in that sense, I'm a little bit more free to do whatever I want. Finding that balance between, expressing all these different facets and while still maintaining some sort of consistency, it's tough, man. I'm still figuring that out.
The business side of me says that you're right. As a general rule of thumb, doubling down on one thing, niching down as we've come to know it, is a very good idea. It's a good idea. It is absolutely a good idea. And I would even say in the beginning, it is essential, like to kind of set your foundation. This is what I'm about. I do wonder if we are just talking about a foundational issue. Like, for example, if the foundation of your brand is that I am multi-genreal, we're going to use that term again, then that is kind of, solving, that's digging the well before you're thirsty. You see what I'm saying? And in a way, but then what about the people that weren't there from the beginning and didn't see you establish that? There's still going to be people coming in and be like, oh, dude, Underbelly is a crazy Midwest rapper. And you're like, what the hell? I did one song like that? What are you talking about? And then they come in and you're like, wait, what is this wubby-dubby stuff? And so that doesn't even fully answer that question. Yeah, sorry. I play my own devil's advocate, and I play my devil's advocate's advocate sometimes. And you can see how this kind of just spirals into.
I mean, you could drive yourself crazy trying to people please and worrying about your image so much. But it definitely matters for sure. And, part of the reason why I did, do a music video for the latest song is to show I'm an artist and not just, you're not just going to see me in front of an Ableton screen. I definitely want to push that more. I want to be known for that more. And I'm going to be doing more sort of music videos and more lyrical stuff to sort of further that. And if it hits, it hits. And if it doesn't, whatever. I can always go back to making silly YouTube content.
You've been doing YouTube for a long time. You're crushing it with the reels. Obviously, you have an established brand, thousands and thousands and thousands of followers. What are some really great ways that you have found to be your own billboard? right? This could be as simple as, oh, when you upload a reel, do this as well, or check out this type of content. This is where I get ideas. It could, however you want to take that, but I think that'd be very useful for people to hear.
I mean, big reason why I leaned into the you suck at producing stuff, especially early on, is just it took off organically way more than my music ever did. So I think that just rule number one, just be open to other possibilities, right? Like just, you shouldn't have to like compromise your art too hard, but if something is working, explore it. Even if I never planned to be a funny YouTube tutorial guy. I just saw a funny video called "You Suck at Photoshop" on YouTube in like 2013. And I was like, I just want to do that for producing. That would be funny, I think. And here we are. So, be open to those kinds of experiences, exploring, realms that you never maybe planned on initially. Beyond that, I mean, yeah, there's definitely like certain artists and creators that I look towards for inspiration. Like with the Reels stuff, Dank Sauce is another Ableton Instagram reel maker, and his tricks are insane. His editing is great. Jabot is another great one. Like they put in, you can tell they put in so much work for this like little minute of information, and it's just so tight. It's so engaging. I shudder to think how much work is happening behind the scenes on some of those reels, right? So like that is very inspiring. You can sort of, if you watch enough of these, you can kind of put your finger on the pulse a little bit about what works, what doesn't. And I know it's cringe, but like saying top 5 anything is going to do a lot better than just saying the thing. And, there's certain thumbnails that work, having your face in the thumbnail. I mean, Mr. Beast probably has like PDFs of this for how to go super viral. And especially if there's like a new piece of gear, like Serum 2 just dropped, making content for that because people are searching for that is not a bad idea. Also, I see a lot of people doing streams and then editing down their streams into either short form content or just like quick tutorials. I see Eliminate and Bushu doing that a lot. And that's a great way of just sort of extending the shelf life of content. So yeah, there's all sorts of things like that I've picked up over the years to help something pop off. But at the end of the day, it's a gamble every time. You never know how well something's going to do. You could put an insane amount of work into a video and it just fizzles and dies on the algorithm, right? I would just say don't get discouraged with that. Something's going to pop off. It's just going to take time.
Do you have any advice to not be discouraged? Because so one thing that Nick Sherwink mentioned in his episode, right, is it's the letting go of the ego, realizing that you are not your art. You are just the person that facilitated the art being created. That sounds amazing, and I have no idea how to do that. I post a reel and it doesn't do as well as I thought it would, and it's like there's still like a deep knife in the heart.
Yeah, when you figure that out, hit me up, bro. Essentially, we are sort of being programmed to measure our self-worth in likes. You know what I'm saying? I had Facebook when I was in like 6th grade, but like I didn't have Instagram. I didn't have TikTok. Like I wasn't just like straight brain rotted from birth. You know what I'm saying? Like honestly, oftentimes I just like post a reel and I just delete Instagram from my phone. Like I would just drive myself crazy checking that. So, I think there is a sort of, stoicism or detachment that one needs to practice with all of this, and just sort of reminding yourself that your self-worth can't be measured in likes or reposts or whatever. But it's an endless struggle, but both in the positive, like thinking that something pops off, right? Means that it was objectively better than all your other work. It's very tempting to sort of see what does well and only do that and just sort of be captured by your audience in a way. And I guess I've sort of experienced that lightly with the tutorials and focusing on that as opposed to music. But I think there's a balance to be struck between what you want to do with your project, what you want to express, and what does well. And it's just an endless struggle.
It's a hard pill to swallow when you realize, like, one of the things that you just said was, you can see, based on the algorithms, based on how people react, we can see which type of content works objectively better. That has value. That absolutely has value to acknowledge that, to see that, to understand why that happens. And I think we can both agree that it's not the end of the road. It's not the end of the race. It's not the full fulfillment, because one could just open an OnlyFans account right now and get a whole bunch of traffic, and yet it still wouldn't probably fulfill the creative side of you.
Speak for yourself, bro.
You haven't seen my OnlyFans yet, my dude. There is this tension, coming back to the tension of what we're talking about, of creating and being the billboard. Because the billboard, the metric for the billboard is how many people are liking it, how many people are reacting to it, how many people are sharing it, how much does it blow up. Yeah, I guess sometimes we just get caught, we get lost in the weeds of just putting so much value on the billboard and not putting enough value on the creation.
Totally. I mean, I know we've been kind of on Mr. Beast here and there, and I love on him, but in a way, I admire him because it's almost the pure expression of the billboard, right? He doesn't care about anything else. The only thing he cares about is the most views, the most engagement, the widest possible appeal. And it's in a way, it's kind of beautiful. In another way, it's a bit gross because there is no art, really. It's not really about expression. It's just pure entertainment, pure engagement. And I guess for me, I'm always treating this stuff, like even the tutorials, as a means to an end to get people to care about my music. So I can't fully let go of that part of it. In a way, I sort of admire him and am also disgusted by him or people like that they can just put all that aside and just focus purely on the widest appeal, the most, engagement, just like clickbait to the core. But for me, yeah, there still needs to be that sort of funnel towards the art somehow.
We're going to move into the rapid fire part, which, isn't really rapid fire, but they're still good questions nonetheless. One question I got for you is, what belief about yourself did you have to kill in order for you to grow as an artist?
Yeah, definitely not rapid fire.
I know, I'm the worst at rapid fire questions.
I guess I always thought of myself as someone who was behind the scenes, who didn't want to be a singer or a lyricist or, couldn't do that. I would always make instrumental music. I would always be a support for another artist. It's just not in my, in my constitution, I guess, to try and express myself beyond just pure sound. You know what I'm saying? And I guess lately I've been exploring singing and writing lyrics and writing songs. Actually, a big inspiration for that was I did an album for my dad. And he was in like this band and when he was like in his 20s in the Soviet Union, and he was like, I want to re-record all these songs and have you produce them. And so I recorded all his vocals, and like, to put it mildly, my dad is not a good singer. Like, if I do enough of this, like, it sounds not half bad. Like, I could listen to this. And like, if he could do it, maybe I could do it. You know what I'm saying? So that was part of the inspiration to try and do something like that. And that's sort of where I've been going with Get Too Close. And then my songs I'm going to release after that, just sort of leaning more into the lyricism, the storytelling, that sort of whole aspect of music that I just completely ignored up until this point.
From what I'm hearing you say is when you kind of put your creation in a box. I hate to say that because that's such a common, overly used thing that we've said, but not that you and I have said, that we as a culture have said, that you just kind of stuff yourself in a box. But that's true. You kind of put your creativity within these very arbitrary limits, or at least I don't want, maybe not say that you put it there, but you thought that was that's it. That's how big the creativity is, right? And you're like, well, actually, and then you just make it so much bigger. And you're like, oh wow, there's a lot of room in here. This is nice. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, 100%.
What is an unpopular, controversial opinion that you have about the music industry?
There's never been a better time to be an artist, right? So like, and you don't need like a huge label. You don't need like an A&R. You don't need a manager, agent, any of that. You could just be a kid in your bedroom making reels, making music, and like that is amazing. So in that sense, yes, there never has been a better time. But because the barriers have been so eroded, there's never been more competition. Now, not just from other humans, but from machines, which is insane to say. I guess my opinion would be in some ways, it's never been a better time. In some ways, it's never been a worse time. And I've sort of flip-flop on that. I think about what would happen if I had to start my channel now as opposed to 2013. I guess another popular opinion is, and this is sort of maybe a discouraging opinion, but so much of this is just luck. So much of it. You could be the hardest working person, the most talented person, but so much of it is just luck. Like, I was just mentioning when I started my channel. I started my channel in 2013. And I mean, part of the reason why it blew up way more than my music did is because it was just a much less crowded space. There weren't that many YouTube tutorial guys back in the day. It was like me, Mr. Bill, Dubspot, maybe a handful of others, and that was it. So it was just so much easier to break in. Now I would have so much of a harder time doing that. Maybe it wouldn't have worked at all. Maybe it would have just been impossible. I always want people to be encouraged and work hard and sort of put their best foot forward. But just the reality of it, making career in art, is that so much of it is just luck and happenstance and good timing. And that's just the truth, in my unpopular opinion.
What do you envy about the upcoming generation that are going to become producers and stuff like that? What are you like, man, you guys?
I mean, just in terms of like the YouTube tutorial content and just the resources that people have now versus back in the day. I started producing when it was like 2010-ish. And like there was still plenty of YouTube tutorials and stuff, enough to get started. But now there's like a tutorial for like specific Skrillex sounds, there's like a tutorial for like a certain button in Ableton, there's like a bajillion reels about how to get the exact sound as your favorite artist, basically. And that's amazing, the sort of information out there. You never need to go to music school. You never need to pay an insane amount of money for tuition. It's just all there at your fingertips, even more so than it was back in the day. And then, of course, the AI tools, I envy, having grown up, not without that, what it's going to be like, how kids these days are going to, think about art and expression and what it means to be human and all that stuff. I guess I both envy that, and I am both glad that I don't have that. But I guess we're all going to have to sort of reckon with that pretty soon.
So when it comes to Underbelly, you suck at producing, all of these things underneath your creative roof, is there something that you wish people would ask you about concerning Underbelly, concerning you suck at producing? But no one ever does. No one ever asks this question. No one ever talks about this thing. You got anything like that?
No. I mean, like, yeah, people ask. You've been asking great questions, so I think it's been great. Like, I'm trying to field as many questions as I can here, and that's been sort of my career. So I've always gotten great questions. Maybe some not so great questions, just questions about, I've had students who all they care about is just going viral and how do I make a song that goes viral, how do I make content. But for the most part, people ask great questions and are interested in learning more and bettering their craft and all that stuff. So
maybe to flip the question a little bit, because you alluded to that there is absolutely some questions that are maybe not so good. So one of them being like, how do you blow up? How do you, all that kind of stuff. Do you have any other stupid questions? You're like, please stop asking these questions.
Somebody on my stream the other day was like, how does it feel to have your music video get like, 10K views or whatever, and your tutorial is getting 300K views or something like that. I needed those 300K views to even get my foot in the door with those 10K views, you know what I'm saying? And like any amount of views is just insane. Like anybody like even, begins to give it is just crazy. When they sort of start measuring your worth in the number of views that you get for the content that you do, that comes off as being pretty annoying to me. And then there's been other questions like, why, stop pushing I guess this isn't really a question, but it's just like, stop pushing your song and just go back to making tutorials. Just tell me how to do Serum and make a WOMP. We've been talking about putting ourselves in a box. Other people want to put you in a box too.
What is the best decision that you have made for your music career?
Just doing the first You Suck at Producing video, just like trying that. You know, sometimes the scariest thing, the hardest thing is just doing it and getting started and just, you know, trying. So I'm eternally grateful for my, you know, 17-year-old self for even just attempting that. I've made good decisions in terms of the people that I've collaborated with. You know, I made a whole EP with my homie Scro last year, and that was amazing. We made something that neither of us could have done on our own. He's a great friend of mine now. He's an amazing musician. I still work with him. So, you know, just finding people like that to work with has been, you know, incredible. One of the best decisions for me. And then also just like maintaining a good relationship and working closely with Ableton. You know, I do a lot of content for them. I do a lot of reels for them. I do a lot of tutorials for them. They're a great company. Obviously, without what they've made, you know, we wouldn't be here today, right? So like, I'm forever indebted to them in that regard, and maintaining that relationship, working closely with them, you know, helping people understand the new tools and features and updates and all that crazy that they're cooking up over there. That's been really great for me.
And as a little bonus question, we would never, ever cheat or, you know, compromise our relationship with our overlord Ableton. We love Ableton so much. We would never ever look at another DAW. But if we did, is there another feature in another DAW you're like, my guy, dude, please let's get this in Ableton?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely super annoying things that Ableton has not updated ever since I started working using it like 15 years ago that I would just die for. Like for example, in a drum rack, let's say you want to export or stem out the individual drum sounds of your drum rack into separate tracks. There's no easy way of doing that. After 15 years, you have to do it one by one. So dumb. So I can point to specific features like that where I'm just like crying as to why, you know, they haven't done anything about it. So that's annoying. But in terms of like other DAWs, speaking of AI, there's like these like AI musicians in Logic that you can just jam with. Like there's like an AI drummer, there's an AI keyboardist, AI bassist, like, and they you can just jam off them and they come up with sick riffs and ideas based on what you're playing. And like just the built-in sounds in Logic are just like really good. A lot of the built-in sounds in Ableton, especially back in the day, are just trash. You know, hopefully they won't disown me right now, but there's definitely room for improvement there.
That was a great answer. And so two last really quick questions. So if someone has never been more convinced that they want to join the world of Underbelly and You Suck at Producing, they're like, screw my world, is not my world, I want your world. How do they go about that? Where's the best place to go?
Yeah, so you just watch my videos, You Suck at Producing on YouTube. In pretty much every video, I have a link to my Discord. We Suck at Producing. It's an amazing community of almost 30,000 people who just want to suck less and help each other do that. So you can, you know, every Friday we have Feedback Friday where people are playing their tracks and getting feedback. There's all sorts of channels for, you know, discussing specific aspects of music for, you know, production and business and all that stuff. And, that's a great place to reach out to me. So yeah, join my Discord. It's sick.
And the final question that we have is there anyone that you would like to see come on Behind the DAW and do a deep dive like this?
I mean, Virtual Riot, that would be sick. San Holo, that would be sick. Let's see, Moody Good is one of my favorite producers. I would love to know more about his sound design. All that stuff. You had Copycat, which is great. Copycat's the homie.
Tim Linetsky, also known as Underbelly, also known as You Suck at Producing. My guy, thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you have any last words to say before we head out?
No, then just thank you so much. It's been an amazing conversation. You're a great interviewer. Great podcast. So thank you, Wyatt.
DAW Nation, You Suck at Producing is the YouTube channel that you should go check out. Make sure to go subscribe to Tim over there. You have not downloaded the free download yet. Go download it now. Should I refilm that? I'm not going to. And make sure to check out the school base down in the description. But Donish, thanks so much for coming through. Make sure to stay tuned for next week's episode. It's absolutely amazing. Fantastic. I don't know what else to say. I'm terrible at goodbyes. So I'm just going to stop mid-sentence. I love you guys.